Alright, final stretch for Chagiga, Daf Chavav, and Aleph. There's a lot of Mishnahs on this page, a lot of Mishnayos on this page, and we're looking at the second Mishnah on this page, which is like in the middle of the wide lines. So, what we got up to here is, we said, according to the Rabbanan made a decree, made a gzela, that Amei people that are not living in purity, they're not very careful about it. They, even though they don't lavdafka touch Tumah, we consider them Tamei. And Amei that touches anything, it will be considered Tamei. If it touches a vessel, if you want to use a vessel for kodesh, you have to toivel it. If you want to use a vessel to eat, even for yourself, but tahana, you have to toivel the vessel. Same thing as food, etc. Different things. So, however, we said that when it comes to Yontev, for many different reasons, when it comes to Yontev Regel, so the three Sholosh Regalim, either the 7th day of Pesach, back in Bein Shalayim, the 2 days of 7th day of Pesach, 1 day of Shavuos, and the 8th day of Sukkot, Shukas and Shmini Atzeres, even the Amaratzim were considered Chavedim, they were considered that they are careful with Tumah and Tahana. So, but the question right now is, what happens right after Yontev is over? Right after Yontev is over, the Amaratzim go back to their original state, they become Tamei again. Even though throughout Yontev they were Tamei and they didn't touch Tumah yet, they go back to the previous state. Right after Motzei Shabbos Yimei Havdalah, all the Amaratzim are considered Tamei. What about the items that they touched? The items that they touched during Yontev, after Yontev is over, would we say that those items are Tamei? So in fact, that's what's going to happen. Every item that they touched becomes Tamei after Yontev. What about the food? So here our Mishnah has a machlokes about the food. So we have a thing like this. During Yontev, there are a lot of people coming to the Shalayim. You need food, you need drink, you need bread. So they had people selling street vendors. So the Mishnah says like this: Maseches Chagiga. If someone opens up his barrel of wine to give to the people that are coming to Shalayim, and someone starts kneading a dough, and what happens is that he's al gav regel on Yontev, for Yontev, and what happens is that he's standing in the street and he's selling the wine and selling the bread, and the customers are coming and are touching the barrel of wine and they're touching the barrel of bread. Of the Mishnah, Maseches Chagiga. So now that they touched it, now that the item technically would be Tamei, but because it's legal, because it's Yontev, we said Yontev, the Tumah goes down and not Tamei. Question is, the moment Yontev goes out, what do you do if there's leftover wine in the barrel, or there's leftover a dough to the whole the batch? So Rabbi Yehuda says you can finish selling the barrel of wine, and you can finish the dough. What's the reason? So Rashi says the reason is that there were 3 things that Chacham allowed. It took off a decree or allowed certain things because of the ending. What does that mean? The issue here is that if a guy knows that if he opens up a huge barrel of wine and he doesn't finish selling it, that the rest of the wine he can only use it Tumah, or the rest of the wine he can't even use B'chlal, he's going to say, I don't want to sell any wine on Yontev. I don't want to feed the people in Yontev, because what if I don't have leftovers? I'm going to have to throw it out because it's Tamei. So because we look at the ending, and the ending, he might have leftovers, and because if he has leftovers and he's not allowed to sell it, next year is not going to sell B'chlal anything, and then the people in Shalayim are not going to have what to eat and drink. So therefore the Chacham said, and that's Rabbi Yehuda's Shitta, that we allow him to finish the barrel of wine, we're allowed to finish the Issa, the dough, because we want him to sell next year again. We want him to sell. And if we wouldn't allow him to sell, he wouldn't sell B'chlal. But Chacham says, no, I'm sorry, you can't do it. The Issa, the dough is considered Tamei, the wine is considered Tamei, and the Gemarrah is going to discuss, so what are you going to do with the wine? First of all, you can do it, obviously, if you become Tamei, you can sell it to someone Tamei, you can give it to someone else that's Tamei, but what are other options? Yosef Rav Amei Rav Yitzchak Nafka Akil Rav Yitzchak Nafka. Rav Amei and Rav Yitzchak were sitting on the porch of Rav Yitzchak Nafka. Pasachad, one of them started to say like this: V'amar Mahu sheyanicheno leregel achad. According to Rabbi Yehuda, You can finish the barrel right after Yontif. So according to Chachamim, you can't use it. So can you maybe take the barrel of wine and put it away to the next Yontif? Next Yontif, the Tumah of let's say you have the barrel of wine and you open up on Pesach, and Shavuos is coming in 7 weeks. Put it away for 7 weeks and then serve the wine again. On Shavuos, there's no Tumah. That Amalatz not considered Tamei. Maybe you can use the wine again. Marish and Cheno leregel achen. Amalei idach. So the other one answered, how can you say that? Yad hakoil b'mashmishim bo. Why does it become Tamei? Because everyone touches it, so it's going to be Tamei by the next Yontif. Vat amos and Cheno leregel achen. He said he should put it away for the next Yontif. So, but the guy said, 1 second, but they touched it during Yontif itself, and he said it's not a problem. Now, until now, till this Yontif itself, isn't everyone touching it already? So the same concern you have that everyone is touching it and it becomes Tamei, and you say it's not a problem in the first regal, the same thing should be the next regal. Is it the same? During this Yontif, the Torah said that an Amaoretz does not have Tumah, but Amaoretz beregel, the Chmona Torah Tira made the Amaoretz Torah. So on Yontif itself, as soon as he gets into Yontif, the Amaoretz becomes Torah. When he touches the barrel of wine, look at the barrel of wine is Torah, and he touches it in a state of Tahara according to the Torah. But next Yontif, the barrel of wine is Tamei because of the previous Yontif. The in between, the Torah takes off that Tahara and it becomes Tamei. So the only time you can say that the barrel is Torah is before even Amaretz touched it. But as soon as Amaretz touched it on Yontif, once that Yontif goes out, the barrel becomes Tamei. So next Yontif comes in, the barrel is Mekatchil Tamei. On Pesach, when you open the barrel Mekatchil is Torah, and the Amaretz touches it, and you say even though the Amaretz touched it, it's Torah. But the moment Yontif goes out, the barrel becomes Tamei. The next Shavuos though, the barrel is Tamei, Mekatchil, the barrel is right away Tamei because the Amaretz touched it, and we say that the Hala goes down. So we can't put it away. Elahashta Tamei. Shavuos comes around, for example, it's already Tamei. So we have an Amin of Yitzchak that have an argument whether you can, according to Chacham, can you take the barrel of wine that became, the moment Yontif is over, it became Tamei, and can you put it away for Shavuos? One guy says the one guy is of the opinion you can put it away because the same way it's okay this Yontif, it's going to be okay the next Yontif, and the other guy says no. The first Yontif it was Tamei Lekatchila and it became Tamei. The second Yontif it's going to be Tamei Lekatchila. And everyone agrees that even on Yontif, Talmid Chacham or anyone is not allowed to sell anything Tamei, even if the Tumah is only the Rabbanon that the Amaretz touches. Says the Gemarrah this. Maybe the Machloikas of Amin and Rabbi Yitzchak and Afka is a Machloikas of Tanoim. Name it Tanoim. The Tani Chada, we have a Tana that learned about this. It says very clearly you can put it away for the next Yontif. So you open up barrel and wine of Pesach on Pesach, continue selling it by Shavuos. So we see two Tanoim in a blatt and in the Mishnah, and they say exactly this machlokes. One guy says put it away, the other guy says don't put it away. My love Tanoi, that's taka machlokes of Tanoim, and Rabbi Yitzchak and Afre and Ami, they each go according to each Tana. And with more loy, Hadek Tani and Chena, the machlokes here is according to the Yehuda Nabban. Rabbi Yehuda says that he can put away, he can use the barrel of wine right away. He doesn't have to put it away for anyone else. So he says, the Tana that says you can sell it the next Yontif is according to the Yehuda. The Yehuda says if you can use it right after Yontif, you can for sure use it also on the next Yontif as well. So the Tana that says Yanichen Legel Achel is Rabbi Yehuda. The one that says that he shouldn't put it away is Rabbanon. Why? Because Rabbanon said it becomes Tamei right away. So now basically what do we have? We have our Mishnah has a machlokes whether you can sell it after Yontif. Rabbi Yehuda says yes, Rabbanon says no. Then we have two other Mishnahs, and it will go according to the same Shitta. Rabbi Yehuda says because you can sell it after Yontif, you can definitely sell it the next Yontif. Rabbanon says because you can't sell it right after Yontif, you can't even sell it the next Yontif. But here we have a problem. If you learn this way, then the Ami and the Yitzchak and Afre cannot go according to Tanoim. Why not? because of Ami and Rabbi Yitzchak and Afka have an argument in the Shitta of the Chachamim. The Chachamim say you can't sell it after Yontif. So they're asking, according to Chacham, that he can't sell it after Yontif, can we sell it the next Yontif or not? One guy says yes, one guy says no. But if we touch the Mishnah over there, that one Tana says sell it, one Tana not, then we see that Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Ami cannot be going according to those Mishnahs because they are different opinions. Again, because Rabbi Ami and Yitzchak are explaining the abundant Shitta. Fed the Gemarrah, V'tizba, can you really have that? Can you really think that this is how it works? Rabbi Yehuda says, don't put it. Rabbi doesn't say put it away for the next Yontif. Rabbi says clearly, Yigma, finish the bottle. Now, finish the bottle right after Yontif. You don't have to put it away forever. So how can he say? Rabbi says put it away for next Yontif. Rabbi says clearly Yigma. Rabbi Yehuda is the opposite. Rabbi Yehuda says don't put it away the next Yontif because you can sell it right away. And Rabbanan say put it away the next Yontif because you can sell it after Yontif. So put it away for the next Yontif. And according to this, we must say that the question is resolved. Rabbi Ami and Yitzchak had a question whether you're allowed to put it away for Yad Yontif or not in the Shitta of the Rabbanan. According to the way we learned it now, the question is resolved because the Rabbanan say, yes, you can't use it after Yontif, however, you can put it away for next Yontif. What does it mean that Rabbi Yehuda says don't put it away? You don't have to put it away because you can sell it after Yontif. So right now, what we have here is very interesting. What we have here is the Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that after Yontif, Rabbi Yehuda says you can sell it. Therefore, don't put it away for next Yontif. Chacham say you can't sell it after Yontif, and therefore you should put it away after Yontif. And according to the Rabbi and Yitzchak, they were trying to understand this shit of Rabbanan, and obviously we came to a conclusion now. So that's this Mishnah. Second to the last Mishnah, with one of probably the shortest Gemarrahs you ever saw. So what happens that we said that the Amor that's on Yontif is Tohel. The moment Yontif is over, he is Tamei. And not only is he Tamei, we now know that the barrel itself is also Tamei. Even according to Shittos Rabbi Yehuda that says you can sell the wine after Yontif, he agrees, technically you could say that he agrees that the barrel is Tamei, but this extension of removing this decree of the Rabbanan extends until the barrel is empty. But yes, the Amor becomes Tamei right away, and everything that he touched becomes Tamei. Now we have a big problem. All the Amanatzim, many Amanatzim would come up to the Beis hamikdash to bring the Kabbanas, Chagiga and Lasregel, come Pesach, whatever it is. Kohanim Amanatzim would come up and would get inside and bow down in the oil moed. And what if they touched items? Now you have a Beis hamikdash that's full of items that it's possible. It's not impossible. We have to say they must have touched because our hands are always busy with something. It must have been that they touched items. So what are you going to do with those items? Says this Mishnah, Misha over Egel, when the Yontif is over, Mavirin al Taharas Azara. We have to take away all the Kalim in order to be Mataya the Azara. The Gemara's Mishnah is going to explain it's not the Azara itself. The Azara is made of stone. You don't have to Mataya the Azara, but all the Kalim inside. What if Yontif ends on Thursday night? Over Egel, Liyom Shishi. The Over Egel, the day after Yontif, is on Friday. So now, Friday, technically, according to this Mishnah we just said, Friday would have to take all the Kalim out of the Beis hamikdash, toivel all of them, and get ready for Shabbos. You don't have enough time, it's Friday.
The Kiyah was stuck inside.
So the Kalim, that's a very good question. You'll see it's a very good question. Items that were stuck on the ground technically would not be considered Tamei. And even the Kiyah was not really stuck on the ground, it was attached to the ground with the boil, the water would go up and down, but the kid itself you can remove. There's certain items, yes, that were taka stationary. But, so you have to move it. If it's Friday, you don't have time because it's Shabbos Kodesh, what are you going to do? It says the Mishnah, Loya Mavirim Ipnei Kavod Shabbos, they would do the Tefillah on Sunday. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Afle B'Yom Hey. Rabbi Yehuda says also not on Thursday. Rabbi Yehuda says like this, She'eina Kihanim Pnui, because the Kihanim are not available. They're not free. Says the Gemarrah, the shortest Gemarrah probably ever seen. So the Gemarrah Tana, what does it mean She'eina Pnuim? She'eina Kahanim Pnuim Milohoitzi Badeshen. The Kahanim are not free and available because they are emptying out the deshen. Well, during the Yontif, there wasn't any. There's something called Tumah deshen. Every morning the Kahanim wake up in the morning, they take down a little bit of the deshen, a little bit of the fire that was left over on the Mizbeach, and it's called cleaning the Mizbeach.
That's what they used to fight over, and then they made
the raffles, exactly, and they put on the side, and it's going to be removed outside. On Yontif, they actually there was a certain noya mizbeach, a certain beauty for the mizbeach to leave all the ashes on. So that says somewhere, huh?
You
You have to have a tissue. You see all the tissue stuff. You see this is yoifi. This is yoifi of granites. Actually, granite is beautiful. But in the mizbeach they had this. I saw someone written that they had 300 koil. There's a huge amount of ashes on the mizbeach or burned deshen. So after Yontif was over, the first day they were busy cleaning the burnt stuff out of the mizbeach and out of the Beis hamikdash. So the day Isvachag doesn't make a difference when Yontif and finished. Isvachag they were busy. The day after they were able to go do all the tefillah of the kelim. So now if Yontif finishes Wednesday night, Thursday they are busy with the deshen. Friday they're going to start cleaning the kelim to its Shabbos. So according to Rabbi it says, even on Thursday, if the Yontif finishes on Wednesday night and the Oval Regel, the day after Regel is Yom Hey, you don't do the Tefillah on Vav, on Shabbos, because even though now it's going to be 2 days, you're going to still put away for Sunday. Okay, Zag the next Mishnah, the last Mishnah in this Masechta, Keitzad Ma'avirim, the last Mishnah technically in Seder Moed. Technically in Seder Moed, this is the last Mishnah. We had when we were learning at the beginning of Chagiga or the end of Moed, or the beginning of Moed. I remember there was a Taisus, Machloikas, whether Moed Cotton is the last one or Chagiga's last one. And Zog the Mishnah. Keitzad Mavir Meltahas Azor. How exactly does this happen? How do you cleanse out the Azor? Zog the Mishnah Matbilim Masakelim. First of all, we're not cleaning the Azor itself. The Azor itself is not Makabal Tumah, it's made of stone, it's stationary, it's made of stone, it doesn't have Makabal Tumah, but we take out all the Kelim. Matbilim Masakelim Shav Mesimigdash. Okay, period. During Yantev, they tell the Kahanim that are Ameh Haratzim, Hizal, when you go down into the oil moed to bow down before Hashem, Hizal will be careful, do not touch the Shulchan. Because you'll see that the Shulchan is a difficult, what's the reason you shouldn't touch the Shulchan? What?
Made of gold?
No, because the Shulchan, it says by the Shulchan that there has to be lefonai tamid. That the Shulchan has to be constantly in front of Hashem. So it basically means the Shulchan can never be removed. If the Shulchan has a Tumas mess, a Tumah midoraisa, so the Torah tells you that if it's a Tumas mess, you have to take it out and purify. If the Tumah is only a Tumah derabanan, which is what? Safiko, it's a Tumah derabanan. Basically, you're going to take a pasuk from the Torah that says that the Shulchan has to stay there forever, and you're going to say that there's a Tumah derabanan. I'm going to remove it because of Tumah derabanan. So therefore, they tell the Amalatzim, let's not get into this issue that a Tumah of the Rabbanan will outdo a mitzvah of the Elaisa. So therefore, they tell them, do not touch the Shulchan. They warn everyone, you can bow down, don't touch anything inside. Zag the Mishnah weiter. Kol HaKelim Shehoy B'Mikdash, all the Kelim that were in Beis HaMikdash, and obviously besides the Shulchan at this point, Yeshlem Shneim or Shlishim, they have secondary and third Kelim, they have 2 or 3 Kelim. Replacements, in case one gets Tamei, they can right away replace it with a second one. The second one becomes Tamei, they can replace it with a third one. Shem Nitmu or Rishonim of Yeshnim, Tachteim, and so forth. Kol HaKelim Shehoy B'Mikdash Shonim B'Tvilah, all the Kelim in Beis HaMikdash, you have to go Toivel in the Mikvah. Chutz, Mizbeach Hazav, the Mizbeach that's inside the oil moed, which is called Mizbeach Hazav. Mizbeach and Achosh is the copper Mizbeach, which is outside the oil moed in the courtyard. What's the reason they don't need Tvilah? Because they are kalka, and kalka is not makabel tumah, it's not makabel tamei. That's what the blatt says. Because they are covered with either copper or gold. And the Gemarrah is going to discuss this is actually a problematic statement. Says the Gemarrah. Tana Rabbi Lazar, Tana Malgalat. Hizaru, we learned in a different place. Hizaru, they told the Kahanim, which were Amalatzim, Shemot Tigu Bashulchan Uba Menorah. They added the Menorah here. Why is Atana not mentioned Menorah? And so he answers, Shulchan Ksivei Tamid. By the Shulchan it says the Hailafone Tamid. But the Menorah, like Ksivei Tamid, it doesn't say Tamid. Quick question everyone's asking.
People can't go inside the Eichel.
The Kahanim Amalatzim. So look, Taisus on top. Shalei Tigu Bashulchan, but Kahanim Amalatzim Ahoilchim LaHeichel Ishtachava is coming. Talking about the Kahanim Amalatzim that are going to the Heichel to bow down on Yontif. You're right. Saul cannot go inside. But we're talking about Kahanim Amalatzim. says the Gemarrah says so. By the Menorah it says Tamid. Sorry, by the Shulchan it says Tamid. But the Menorah doesn't say Tamid, even though they all ask a question. But the Menorah also says Tamid. It says that there should be an Tamid, there should be there should always be lit. So they explain that the Tamid goes on the candle, but not the Menorah. The Menorah doesn't have to stay there technically. It's a vessel to hold the candle, but the Menorah itself does not have to be there. But the Shulchan it says Lefone Tamid.
Take out the candles?
Whatever it is. And even that, there's a machlokes whether there was a candle that burned the whole time. The machlokes, and Tosfos brings it down, and that discusses it in a Shumas at length. What?
Why can't you have a replacement shulchan?
You could have a replacement shulchan. In case taka becomes tumah, you could have a replacement. If it becomes tumas mess, you have to take it out and toilet. You have no choice. So there's a mitzvah midaraisa to have it in front of tamid, and there's a issa midaraisa to have it tumah in Beis hamikdash. So they are equal. So you have to clean it in order to be mekayim mitzvah. But if here to tell them is zadol, because we don't want them to be metame with a tumah, with a lesser tumah, and still need to take it out. Then it's going to be taking away a midaraisa because of the abundance. It's an issue.
Why is it taking away the deraisa? Put the second shulchan there.
Because it shouldn't be removed. Tamid, it has to be constantly the whole time there. And I said, according to this Gemarrah, when it says they had a second there or a third there, this statement does not apply by the shulchan. They did not have a second there. Okay, that's what some say. I said the Gemarrah weiter. Ve'idach. So the Tana in our mission says Menorah doesn't say Tamid. Ve'idach to the other Tana. Why does he count Menorah? Kiva the Chsiba v'Menorah noichach shulchan. Where do you place the Menorah? Noichach, opposite of the shulchan. Whenever the shulchan is there, the Menorah has to be there because the Menorah is opposite of the shulchan. Because the shulchan is constantly there, the Menorah has to be constantly there. It's like as if it says by Menorah Tamid, because it says the Menorah has to be placed noichach shulchan. If you take out the shulchan, that you have to place the Menorah opposite of wherever the shulchan goes to. But because the shulchan constantly, without an interruption, stays in Oil Moed, the Menorah is the same. This is the same applied to the Menorah. Ve'idach. So our Tana, why doesn't he say the Menorah also should not be touched? The pasuk doesn't say to keep it there forever. Just you want to know where to place it. When you put it inside the Beis in the Oil Moed, it's noichach shulchan. And the other doesn't agree with it. It says yes, you learn noichach shulchan means forever. So we have a machlokes with Tanaim, and our Tana says no, only the shulchan, not the Menorah. Fei di Gemarrah azaka Hashem. Why do you say that the shulchan becomes tamei? The shulchan is a kli eitz, and the shulchan, he said, is lefonai tamid, has to be there constantly. And we have a klal that kol kli eitz ha'osu lenachas, every kli eitz that is there forever is lemitamid. Say the reason. Don't say that the shulchan becomes tamei because the shulchan is made out of wood, covered with gold, but it's made out of wood. And ha'osu nachasu, it's there to stay forever. And every wooden vessel that is made, that is stationary, doesn't move, it's in a permanent place, loy mitame, doesn't become tamei. How do we know that? My timer.
Oh, okay.
My timer. Do me the sakbinin, because it says in the pasuk, kli eitz ubeged or oil or sok. It says there that a kli eitz, a vessel made out of wood, a beged, a garment, is something made out of leather, and a sok, which is a bag. And basically, the sok, the sok is it applies to everything. That the kli eitz, the beged, and the oil have to be like the sok. Just like the sock can be transferred, around whether the bag is empty or full. Something also the kli eitz, and the kli, it has to be something that you can move around. Zad Gemarrah. Do with the sock binin. Ma sak mitalta mol v'rekam. I'll call mitalta mol v'rekam. Anything that you can be mitaltel mol v'rekam is mekabel tumah. But a kli eitz, a wooden vessel that is not moved around, it's not like a sock, it's not like a bag, and therefore it's not mekabel tumah.
But it can be moved around.
It doesn't make a difference.
That's why there's poles and everything.
Therefore, if a tamei person touches a house, the house doesn't become tamei. The house made out of wood doesn't become tamei.
The house can't be moved.
You could be
we're talking about.
Could be moved. What if you cut down the thing? It could be moved. Basically, if the idea of the item is that it's stationary, then that's it. Then it's considered ha'osul lenachas. It doesn't say that it's connected. That it's nichsed to the night. It says osul lenachas. It's meant to stay in one place. So now, We have a question on the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, tell the Kohen not to touch the Shulchan because it might become Tamei. No, the Shulchan doesn't become Tamei. It's made out of wood and it's made to be stationary. And called Kli'etz, also the Nachas, doesn't become Tamei. So, the Gemarrah, the Omar Shlokish explains, it says in Pasuk al Shulchan hatoil. It says the Shulchan has to be toil. So we see, if the Pasuk say the Shulchan has to be toil, we can see that there are times that the Shulchan becomes Tamei. Michlal Shur Tamei. Ve'amai, how can the Shulchan become Tamei? Kliya is also nachaso. Ve'edem makabel tumah. It's a kliya that's supposed to be stationary forever, and it's not makabel tumah. Ela melamed, as Shlokish tells us, shemagbino is a very interesting tidbit. That when it came to Yantiv, they wanted to show the miracle of the lechem upon him to all the Yidden that gathered in Azara, and they would lift up the shulchan. The kahana would go inside and lift up the shulchan and show the Yidden the shulchan with the lechem upon him inside. Melamed shemagbino, he said they would lift up the shulchan and marin by the they would show it to all the people that came up to Yerushalayim. And what did they show? The lechem upon him. And they would tell them, look how beloved you are in front of the Eibishter. Why? Because the taking away the lechem upon him is just like he put it on. Lechem upon him was put on a Shabbos. Every Shabbos they would go in, put in a fresh batch of 12 loaves, and they would remove. They wouldn't even actually. They would push it out while they put in the new one. They would like move it out so that the shulchan is never empty. So they show the people that the lechem upon him is 7 days in the shulchan. There's no fire. It's not an oven, but yet it's still fresh. It's fresh, it's warm, and it's fresh. So that they wanted to show the Eibishter, they wanted to show that the Eibishter loves them. The Amar B'Shua B'Levi, Nes God Nasim Lechem upon him. There was a big miracle with lechem upon him. Whatever, however they put it down, however they took it away, that's how they put it down. So basically, it was still warm. Shenema Losum Lechem Choim B'Yoyim Elokei. They put hot bread on the day it was taken. The pasuk really, the pasuk pshat means something else, but they should put hot bread there. But the pasuk also can be learned in a way that when they took away the bread from last week, the bread was still warm. Taisa says lav dafka, and it's something else, but the idea is that it was a miracle. It was still fresh, even if it's not warm, if it's fresh. Okay, so basically,
Does that mean they moved the shulchan out? How did they show? How did they show isn't there a door in the Heichel?
Yeah, they opened up the door. They opened up the door to the Heichel. They were able to peek inside. It's not a problem. It's not quite a Chakodoshim. It's still Heichel. And
whoever was there by the doors, they saw the.
I'm trying to remember where it said who brought it down about this. Like it's like almost like that. I think they said that itself was a miracle that all the Eden saw it, because you have an opening of a door and you have literally hundreds of thousands of Eden standing in the Azala. And they could see the Menorah, they could see the Shulchan somehow. So that itself was a miracle. I saw it written somewhere. I forgot where. That this.
Maybe they had like Napoleon's March by Ne'ilah.
Maybe steps. Maybe they could go up. Yeah. They couldn't move it out. They couldn't move it out because Lafana told me they couldn't move it out. They had to stay there.
Right.
Okay, but now what we have is basically Shlokish says that the Menorah, that Shulchan is not also an achas. It's not meant to be stationary. Why? Because on Yantiv they would lift it up. If you lift it up. And it's a kli'et, it could be makabel tumah, and because it could be makabel tumah, we tell the kohen that's not ma'aretz, don't touch it. We don't want it to be makabel tumah. Fredi Gemarrah, a very interesting question. Now that we agree that the Menorah, the shulchan could be makabel tumah, why do you say that the shulchan could be makabel tumah? Because it's moved. We have a different. We can learn it from a different way. The Menorah was made out of wood. The covering is made out of metal. The shulchan. Sorry, the shulchan is made out of wood. But it was completely covered with a sheet of a metal of gold.
Did you say previously that the sheet made it not become Tamei?
No.
You didn't say that there was some of the clay.
The Chacham oimrim mipnei she'inz mitzupin. The Chacham said that is the Gemara is going to ask that question because it doesn't make sense. The metal is makabel tumah. Now here's also the thing: the pasuk that we mentioned about being moved around, it says about wood, material, leather. That they have to be like a sock, they have to be like a bag, they can move around. Iron, metal, gold, even if it's stationary, it's makabel tumah. So basically what he's going to say, the shulchan is covered fully in a metal, it's fully covered in gold. If it's fully covered in gold, even if you don't lift it, the shulchan came with a chiddush that lift the menorah. The lav dafka can lift the menorah. But if even the Shulchan, I keep saying the Menorah, the Shulchan, he didn't have to lift the Shulchan to show the Yidden to say that it becomes Tamei. The Shulchan can be stationary, and the reason it's still Mekabel Tumah is because it's covered in a metal. Now, how do we know that being covered in metal makes the entire thing as the metal, not as the inside? Says the Gemarrah. Let's say that the reason it becomes Tamei, and that's why the Kahanim shouldn't touch it, because it's covered. The Hatanan, we learned in the Mishnah, a Shulchan v'adupik, a table and a folding chair. Shenif chasul, a table is meant to put items on top of the table. If the table breaks to an extent that he can't put anything on, it becomes ois kli. It's nullified. It's not a vessel anymore. When is a vessel mekabel tumah? If it's a vessel. If it's not a vessel anymore, it's not mekabel tumah. So if the shulchan, the table, or dubak, the chair, shenif chasul, they were broken, ois shechipon b'shayish, or he covered it with a stone. But he left a little wood out there to put on cups. Tamei, so the table can still entirely become Tamei because it still can be used for its purpose. So basically, if the table is not broken enough not to be able to put on cups, it becomes Tamei. If the table is totally smashed, there's nothing not become Tamei. If the table is covered totally with a shaish, with stone, it's not Mekabel Tumah. Why? Because the entire table becomes like the stone, and stone is not Mekabel Tumah. If the table has a little opening where there's still wood in there, then it's Mekabel Tumah. But the idea is that if it's entirely covered with a stone, with a shaish, it's not Mekabel Tumah. So here we see that even though the pnim, the inside, is wood, if it's entirely covered, the inside becomes like the outside. It takes on the status of the outside, which is stone. Abida says that the area that's open has to be not only for cups, also to put meat, because a table is made to eat and drink, so you have to put also flesh, you'll be able to put the pieces of meat there. But the idea is that if it's entirely covered, it takes on the status of its covering. Now, if it's stone and it's entirely covered, it's not Mekabel Tumah. If it's gold and if the shulchan is entirely covered with gold, and gold is Mekabel Tumah, gold can become Tamei, then the shulchan will become Tamei. So a much simpler answer to say that the shulchan could become Tamei is because it's entirely covered, and an item that's entirely covered becomes like the covering. Yeah? What's the you want to say no? When do you say that the inside is bottled to the outside, the inside is the wood, becomes nullified towards the outside, and becomes like the status of the outside, is by any wood, but not atzashitim. Atzashitim was a special wood. The chashivi, v'lebatli atzashitim are very, very precious wood, and it's not become bottled, even though you cover it with metal, it's not bottled. And now, if it's not bottled, the shulchan is made out of wood, and it's resting, and therefore it cannot become Tamei. That's why we need the answer of the shlokish that they lifted it. What they're trying to do is trying to avoid the answer of the shlokish that they lifted the shulchan. They're trying to avoid that answer. But basically, you want to say that it's atzashitim and it's chashav. I'll tell you no, it's not true. Hanich shlokish. The shlokish says yes, there is difference between the important, the precious wood, or not such precious wood. Amar leshano ela bekli ach salagim haboim din asayam. In very expensive wood, special wood that come from across the ocean, that wood does not become bottled. That even if you cover it, it's still considered wood. But in the simpler wood, it's the opposite. Achslagim is a cheaper wood, but masamin lebatli is a better wood. Lebatli. Basically, the shlokish says yes, a difference in woods. The atzashitim wouldn't become bottled. That even a more expensive, better wood also becomes bottle, it becomes nullified to whatever it's covering. So basically, we take down this answer that it's atzashitim is more important. Because atzashitim is important, it doesn't become like the outside covering. So now that we have the outside covering is metal is Mekabel Tumah, even if it's stationary. So why does the shlokish have to say that we lifted it? You want to answer like this. You would say that maybe when the metal covering is nailed into, it stays there forever, nailed into the wood, then the wood is nullified in regards of the covering. But in the shulchan, it was just a simple covering on top. Like this explains, it was a simple covering. They were able to lift the entire gold off the shulchan and put it aside and then carry the wood. So maybe if it's it's not nailed in for permanently, is it then over there it's not bottled to the metal. No, you can't say that. Haboy min shlach Rabbi Yochanan asked this exact question of Rabbi Yochanan, and they said like betzipo oimid and betzipo she'eino oimid. When you say that the wood is bottled to the outside, is totally nullified to what the covering, are you talking about something that's nailed in, or betzipo she'eino, but something that's not nailed in? The choife es levazivav, or she'eino choife es levazivav. Is it talking about if it's covering the entire, even the outside frame it's covering, or not? If it's not covering the outside frame, it's also bottled. V'amalei, Rabbi Yochanan answered, Lashana b'tzipo oimid, Lashana b'tzipo she'eino oimid, Lashana b'choife es levazivav, Lashana b'eino choife es levazivav. It doesn't make a difference as soon as it's covered, mostly covered, and it doesn't make a difference if it's nailed in or not, and it doesn't make a difference what the wood it is. The wood is nullified to the metal outside, and now you have a shulchan that's entirely covered with gold, and the shulchan itself is considered gold. Gold, even if it's stationary, is makabel tumah, and therefore we tell the kohen gadol, don't touch it.
Yeah, but they lift it. But they lift it.
Kohen b'chal, not the kohen gadol necessarily.
Right.
The kohen, it's not kohen, no kohen amal. It's not as kohen amal.
Right.
So he's trying to avoid the answer of lifting it. So why does the shlokish have to say we lifted it? So at a shine shulchan, the shulchan is very different. The chmonikali eats the toilet coated gold wood, even though it's fully covered with gold, and because it's wood, and a wood that's stationary is not wood stationary is not makabel tumah. They have the shlokish to say that it lifted it. How do we know the wood is the mizbeach is called wood? The chsiv, it says in Cheskel, hamizbeach eitz, and this mizbeach does not mean the mizbeach. It means the shulchan actually. It means the shulchan, not the altar. It means the shulchan. It says it was made of eitz. Shalish amas gvoya, the ol kashtayim amas. It was 3 amas high and 2 amas long. Umiktzaisav loy, and it had corners. The ol kavikadaisav, and its length and its walls. Eitz, they're all made out of eitz. The Abish said, Zeh shulchan. That's how we know it's talking about the shulchan of Shefnei Hashem. This is the shulchan that is supposed to be entirely for.
Not the same.
This is
This is Cheskel, so that's from the voice, so from
It's for guitarists, though, right? Guitarists.
No.
No, the shulchan.
the shulchan. This is the shulchan that we put the bread on. The bread on the front. So that's actually right in front of the, sorry, that's on the side. The Mizbeach was in the middle, and the shulchan in the Menorah. But basically, here we see that it's totally made out of eitz. Even though it's fully covered in gold, he calls it HaMizbeach eitz. So because it's called eitz, and eitz, it's stationary, is not makabel tumah. That's for Shlokish to say that they lifted it, that it's not stationary anymore. Fighting Gemarrah, the pasuk of Mizbeach, Masir b'Shulchan. He started with Mizbeach and ended with Shulchan. What do you want to teach us? Shlokish, the Amat Havai, they both agree finally one time, and they said, Bizman shebeis hamikdash kayam, Mizbeach mechapal odam. When the Beis Hamikdash was there, the Mizbeach took away all the Avedas. If you made an Aveda, the Mizbeach took care of it.
What's the shaila? The pasuk in Yecheskel?
The pasuk in Cheskel, we finished what we discussed before. Now it's a side note. You started saying Mizbeach and you finished a Shulchan. Is it Mizbeach or is it a Shulchan? Mm-hmm. So, and if it's a Shulchan, say Shulchan. Shulchan in the beginning, Shulchan at the end. Why do you start with Mizbeach and end with Shulchan? Because he wants to teach you a beautiful thing. When the Beis Hamikdash was around, the Mizbeach took care of all your sins. Now that the Beis Hamikdash is not around, the Mizbeach, the altar is not here. Achshav Shulchan shel adam mechapel, of the Shulchan of a person at home by a meal, a Shabbos meal, is mechapel. And because it is, they learn a lot of things. One of the things, we have to keep salt on the table. There's actually an opinion that even Tishrei, when you dip in honey, there's different opinions. Some people say still have salt on the table. Chabad Minig is not. And there are others actually even right. I think the Kaf HaChaim writes that even Tishrei, when you dip in honey, you also dip in salt. Because it's like the Mizbeach, you want to show people it's the Mizbeach. Not only that, when you bench, there are some people that say that when you're benching and you build chasamazin because of the Mizbeach, you're benching this whole thing, there is an opinion that you should cover your knife. Why? Because yeah, I didn't see
the knife off the table.
Not on Shabbos. On Shabbos, there's no kind of.
Okay, because it says lesanif aleim ba'azel. The mizbeach was something that you're not to build it out of iron of metal. So you should cover it. And the most important thing to say is that just like a shulchan was able to have all the people come and everyone was able to bring kabbanas, your personal shulchan is also open to a guest and have people come, and that's how you mechapa the avedas.
That's why a kid can't climb on the table.
What?
That's why a kid can't climb on the table.
That's why it was there, right? But they don't listen. Last it was like this. Even starting with the twins, we knew that if the table is entirely clean, all of a sudden it's empty table. What do you do with empty table? You gotta climb and run around. So they said, okay, the table stays always late. Different thing.
Dirty.
I didn't say dirty.
Full of stuff.
It's recorded, I can't say. There was a busy house, Baruch Hashem. Let's finish this. In our Mishnah, it said that you shouldn't touch the Shulchan. And then later on, the Mishnah says that all the Mikelim need to go, didn't have Tefillah, besides the Mizbeach Hazav, and Mizbeach HaNechoishes. And then the Mishnah goes on that they have the Mizbeach and Nechoishes are not becoming Tamei. Mizbeach and Nechoishes, why they, according to Rabbi Lazar, it says they are considered Kalka. How do we know that? Mizbeach and Nechoishes, the outside, the copper Mizbeach, the big Mizbeach, where they brought all the Kabbalah the Chsiv Mizbeach Adamo Tasali. It's called Adamo, so it's Kalka. Mizbeach Hazav, the Chsiv HaMenorah, VeHaMizbechois. It says in the passage that Menorah, and it puts them in two Mizbeachs into one. Iskush Mizbechois Zelazed. Both Mizbeach are the same, and like one is called Adamo, the other one is also called Adamo, and the Kalka and the Adamo, the earth, is not the Kabbalah Tumah. The Chacham say a different reason. Begs the big question: what is? Oh, one second. Before we go, what's it called? There's a cute little toisus on top. Shulchan Shalad Mechapel. The table of a person is Mechapel. How so? The Godel Koyach Halagimu, when he's sitting with friends and say L'chaim, or he's even on seltzer. It doesn't have to be what's it called? Is such a big power, and you've been Mechapel of the Aveils. So yeah, we have
learned this last time.
Yeah. In Sanhedrin we learned this now. Schön. Sagt die Gemarrah weiter. So Mizbach, the Chacham said that because it's covered, it's not a Kabbalah Tumah. We just learned covering a Mizbeach with copper, which is a metal, or the Mizbeach Hazav is covered with gold, is the opposite. It's a problem. That the Mizbeach is not considered wood, now it's considered gold. The gold is Makabel Tumah, it's considered copper, and copper is Makabel Tumah. Because they are covered now with a metal, now there should be Makabel Tumah. You have to say like this. V'chachamim metamim. Chacham said the Mizbeach Hazav becomes Tamei, and the Mizbeach, the outside Mizbeach also is Tamei. Why? Mipnei Shem Mitzumim. Which is a very difficult answer to say that you're going to be toivel the Mizbeach outside. Maybe the inside of the Mizbeach, okay, it's big, it's not that big, but the outside Mizbeach is a whole thing. V.ב-סיום, Rabbanan, the Rabbi Lezer, Rabbanan explain, they're telling the Rabbi Lezer, I'm trying to understand what you said. You said that the reason the Rabbanan understood Rabbi Lezer, let's say they understood him differently. Then Rabbi Lezer says the Mizbeach Adamim Lekatchila is not the Kabbalah Tumah because it's Kalka. They understood that the Mizbeach Adamim is a reason why it shouldn't be Makabel Tumah. Not that because of the Adamim. You'll see in a second. My daitach. The Rabbanan understood that the Rabbi Lezer said that the reason that the Mizbeach could be Makabel Tumah mishum de mitzupim, because it's covered, it shouldn't be Makabel Tumah. And therefore, Rabbi Lezer has to say that even though it's mitzupim, because it's called Adama, it's not Makabel Tumah. We say it's not so. We say miftal botel tzipun gabayu that the according to us, you don't have to get to the answer that it's made out of, it's called Adama. We say that the tzipui is botel to the wood. Opposite than we said before, that when you cover it, it becomes botel, it becomes nullified towards the covering. Because the Mizbeach, we have a pasuk Mizbeach eitz, because we know the Mizbeach is called eitz, therefore, even though it's covered with gold or with copper, it's still considered wood, and it's lefon etam, and its Mizbeach also stays there, and therefore, it's not Makabel Tumah. This is a Lula Garata. Talmidei Chachamim ein oil shel Gehenim shaletz b'hem. The fire of Gehenim cannot consume them, cannot overpower them. How do we know that? Kal v'chomer misalamandra, kal v'chomer of a salamander. Says Rashi, salamandra chaya is an animal. Hanivra'as min oil, that is born from within the fire. Kesheboyer in Eish Makim Echad Sheva Shonim. Tamei B'Efsek, if there's a place that has a fire for 7 years without stop, that's where the salamanders come from. Now, if you Google this, this is a Greek myth. It happens to be a myth, and there's a lot written about it. And they came to the conclusion that this is what was accepted back then. Salamanders technically they breed and they lay the eggs in water. That's what I saw. So this is far-fetched from this whole fire thing. But most of their lifetime they actually spend in wooden logs and rotten logs and broken logs. That's what so what happens is they would gather the logs, they throw them in the fire pit, and all of a sudden 5 minutes later you see salamanders running out. So it became this thing that salamanders are born from fire. But apparently they do withhold a certain, they are somewhat fire retardant, they are somewhat delayed if the fire cannot consume as fast. And back in the day, I saw someone writing that even certain philosophers and certain writers wrote about other writers that they read their scripture, and this was before the Gemarrah was written. It was written for the Bashi and before it was printed.
The fact that it's brought down in Rashi and Torah means
there's something to it, and you have to figure it out exactly. There's a salamander called a fire salamander, which is not what we're talking about. There are salamanders that attack it. They are next to volcanoes, but this idea is interesting. But the limud is beautiful.
Okay.
What is a limud? They bring down stories that there's one guy that smeared. Oh, the Gemara is going to say 1 second. Mal salamander shetuldas eishi, salamander which is made out of, it's born through fire. What happens? Hasach midama, if someone smears himself with the salamander's blood, ein oishalet by the fire that doesn't have power over him. And they bring down a story of some lady that smeared herself with fire, nothing happened to him. And again, it's Tamei the same thing also. When we learn Torah, the entire body becomes fire. Definitely, the fire of the Gehenna cannot overpower. The words of Hashem are ka'esh, are like fire. Num Hashem. Definitely, that the fire of Gehenna will not have any power over them. Ashlakish takes it a step further. People that are poishim, the fire of Gehinnom does not have power over them.
He started on that side of the river, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yes. Kavachoyman. How do we know Mizbeach Hazav? The Mizbeach Hazav, Ma Mizbeach Hazav. She'ein olav ela ka'oy vidin Hazav. The Mizbeach Hazav was covered with a very thin gold. Technically, the fire that burned constantly on Mizbeach Hazav should have melted the gold, and the Mizbeach should have burned. Yet for years and years there was a fire and nothing happened. Kamashanim, Eino Eishalatis boy, Poishe soil that are full of mitzvahs, Shemalei mitzvahs kirimoin. How do we know they're full of mitzvahs kirimoin like a pomegranate? Dechsiv kepalach kirimon akosva, which attaches your temples. Akosva, your temples are like a split open limon, which is supposed to be something beautiful. Altig akosva, don't say the akosva, the kanin shabach, that the empty ones, the poishe soul within the Yidden, have mitzvahs kalima and alachas kamakamo, and therefore the fire of the Gehenna cannot overpower them. And Tosfos asks a question, and he says that there's some poishe soul that do go into fire, but it says basically the most it will be that the answer, in other words, the answer is that the fire cannot consume even the worst of the poshim. The fire may touch someone, he may be in Gehenna. The most he can be, it says one opinion, everyone goes up and then eventually it goes down, eventually goes up. And it says they don't go down more than 12 months because longer than that there's no punishment. But basically, yes, some people go to the Gehenna, but the Gehenna does not have overpower them. Even though they're going to Gehenna, they don't overpower them. Says the last Tosfos, Shein boy Eloi v'adida, but Tanchuma, yes, Shoya Moshe, in the Tumah it's written that Moshe to me, Moshe was wondering, how is that possible? If solid for 8 is how can the wood not be consumed? But Amalamakim, the Eibusha told him, it happened to you once already. You saw wood that didn't burn. Kach darki bo'esh shalmaylo. That's my way. For the fire that comes from above. Eish oichlo eish ve'ena mechala. Just like the thorn bush was burning on fire but it was not consumed, fire from above can burn and not consume. Maar we zeggen ze inderdaad nog een stage nog. Was man nachher so eine Idee, was man sagen, Khaniba Papa, Rama Papa, Nachma Papa, Khoiba Papa, Avma Papa, Rafma Papa. So was meint das?
No.
Aber das wir Weet men zeggen geleden hier. Hier zo gaan man hebben. Slijm je als je moet gewoon gaan. Waar gaat dat en dan meteen gaan. Amen zelf wel. Maar ik ben echt vandaag hadden helemaal zelfs samen dat geen mensen met wat samen dat geen mensen gaan zijn misschien misschien dat hebben misschien dat meteen met gaan zeggen met gaan zeggen. Oh wat ze met wat dan we gaan zo hadden hem tegen de mensen aan staan moet echt met niet te wacht. Dat hebben we vandaag hadden heen alle haye kashem shazatan sai Maseches Chagiga. Kent das reden hast Maseches das war machem. Das war Gdoish machem. Und das sein und mit lam nicht verlassen kein es kommt lieber Tamei sagen aber beschus כל התנועים המרואים, אז תמיד אחד מיעמוד לזרע של תומא שתוים פי זרע וזרע זרע, מעט ועד אוילם, עד אוילם סקיים ביקי, ביסלך אותן חויסה בשבו ותשמע לך ולכסס יסך, כבי במח וסיבו של הסחיים, ערכם ממינו הסמדה שבקובת, עד נוי אויז לעמיד, הנבוא סתם בשולק.
מה זה
Skaba viskal shmeira ba khos gam khos tsukam kham shikhay khaye khn vekh khad khabe so makam muhammad yesh khawal khawal ma izbar shtas ba sam snas ba zaus le so shme khod shabrigo khos be shwas wasen wasen bi amen so ba ba ma tamed ba kol da mit sam dem komande es mir ras di was di khalas sa ba sa hey lo hay makhan shlo ma khine ba khizu ba makhan khim zagen bi kha وبكار مكان مشمع مؤمن مشمع بخمد ابن مكسر مؤمن أيش شو ما بدأ شو ما بقول سؤال أبي مؤمن مازل